Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today I've got my meta predictions for the Atlanta Regional Championships, which is this weekend. It's going to be the biggest regional of all time, I think, and of course, since it's a new format regional, we don't really have a decided meta yet, and I think a lot of people are really going to be bringing some pretty wild creations, trying to test different stuff in this new rotation format, which makes me super excited to compete this weekend and see what is all brought to the table. And yeah, I'm excited to compete. Got an idea of what the metagame is going to be like, and I'm going to talk about and break down where I think the decks that are going to do well are. And then I got the meta predictions at the end here about how popular each deck will be in day one of the tournament. So that's going to be in this video. And if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 23K subscribers, and leave a like if you're going to enjoy the video, and let me know in the comment section below what do you think is going to go down this weekend at Atlanta. If you see me this weekend, don't be afraid to come up and say hi and take a picture or whatever the case may be. I love meeting people, and I love meeting all the subscribers and stuff. So yeah, I hope to see some of y'all in Atlanta. So yeah, starting these off, we have Terrapagos, which is probably, I mean, one of the best decks for the tournament. I kept saying it was like the best deck. I think the conversation has now shifted towards Dragapult being the best deck for this tournament. We'll talk about Dragapult in a minute, but I do think Terrapagos is still going to be very popular. Maybe not as popular as Dragapult, and I'll probably talk more about that in the meta breakdown. But I do think Terrapagos is still a very powerful deck. It's probably like the most like well-rounded, strong deck in the format. I think Dragapult is really good and can win a lot of games. I don't think Dragapult really has like any standout terrible matchups. Terrapagos is a deck that does take a lot of skill to pilot. Also, probably has to be built correctly. I know there's a lot of different ways people are playing their Terrapagos decks right now, so it's one of those decks where like you have to be precise with how you're actually building it. Also, the other issue I have with this deck, it does have a bit of a target on its back right now. At least like in all the online terms and stuff, everyone's teching for Terrapagos. That's like bad for the deck. So I don't know. We'll have to see how this deck does this weekend. I do think it's going to be very popular, at least for this tournament, because it's getting so much attention and hype. Even if the deck does have a massive target on its back, and a lot of people are really making sure that their deck actually has a game plan against this deck. Next up is Dragapult, which I think a lot of people have now been saying is the best deck in the format. I think like the past week I've seen in the Pokemon TCG sphere, everyone's been saying Dragapult is now the best deck in the format. And I definitely can see that. I think Dragapult will be very popular this weekend. I think it'll be extremely popular. We'll talk more about that later, but I think this deck has a chance of being the most popular deck in the room. Because a lot of people are just used to it by now because of the prismatic meta. So, they're trying to figure out what to play in this new format. And it's like, just go back to Dragapult, man. It's still pretty broken. Dragapult is actually not bad into Terrapagos. That's a big deal. It's pretty good into a lot of decks. It doesn't really have any, like, flat-out bad, unwinnable matchup. And with the way the meta is right now and with how people have built their decks, Dragapult can actually be very deadly to play against. I think there's a good chance Dragapult will do well this weekend. It is probably the one deck that has the best chance of winning the tournament with, like, the high skill ceiling it has. A good chance a lot of the top players will be playing Dragapult this weekend. I think there's a very good chance a lot of big names are going to be on Dragapult, and I think that deck does, gives it a chance to, like, really shine. Gardevoir is an interesting one. I wasn't really going to put Gardevoir this high in, like, my talks, but, like, I don't know, man. Gardevoir did do really good at the Champions League Miyagi, and I think a lot of people also have been really gassing this deck up this weekend. It kind of started off as a bit of, like, not a meme, but, like, people weren't really, like, high on Gardevoir, and, now I think going into Atlanta, a lot of people are really, like, looking at this deck like, Gardevoir is actually still pretty good. Yeah, definitely is a very powerful deck. It's a scary one to play against now because, like, the deck is not as, like, skill expressive as it used to be. It's not as, efficient with the Curlias as it used to be. It's still a very good high roll deck where, like, you just high roll, like, Drifloons, and you're just, like, it's really hard to beat Drifloon. If you do not play Jamming Tower, this deck is actually really difficult to beat. So I think Gardevoir has a very good chance of doing well this weekend. Popularity-wise, it's going to be a bit weird, but, I'll talk about how popular I think Gardevoir will be when we get to the meta breakdowns, because it's a weird one for sure. A lot of Guardy stands probably have now switched off the deck and just went to Dragapult, to be honest with you, which is essentially, like, the next stage of Gardevoir, but I don't know. We'll have to see where Guardy itself stands. Next up is Raging Bolt, another deck that is very straightforward, but a little bit more diverse than it used to be with, like, the owls and stuff. And a lot of people have kind of built their Raging Bolt differently with, like, what attackers they want to play in the deck. But yeah, I think Raging Bolt is a very powerful deck right now, and it's one of those decks that so many people just like to play it and have played it that, we saw it in the past where it was, like, the most popular deck in the room. Good chance that happens again in Atlanta, where it has, like, a good chance of being one of the more popular decks in the entire tournament. So, yeah, I don't know if Raging Bolt is actually, like, super well positioned. It's, like, matchup versus Dragapult is, like, okay. Like, it's probably got one of the better Dragapult matchups out of the top decks right now, but, yeah, I think Raging Bolt will be popular, for sure. And then we got Gholdengo, which also has been doing really good in online tournaments. And I have seen a bit of Gholdengo hype recently, too. I think Gholdengo is fairly well positioned. It's got a good matchup into Dragapult, or at least its matchup into Dragapult should be good. The loss of Greninja and Pokestop do hurt the deck, obviously, and that's one of the main things that does hold it back. The other thing that holds it back is that its Terra Box matchup is not the greatest either. I think the Terra Box matchup is slightly unfavored for sure, especially if you do not play a tech card for Pikachu EX. That matchup is just very unfavored, but Gholdengo does have a good matchup spread right now. It really depends on how you build your Gholdengo deck, like how hard are you teching for Cornerstone Ogerpon. The more popular way Gholdengo's seen play right now is with the Dunsparce, and you get the Dunsparce EX, which can actually be good against Cornerstone, and then also, I've seen builds playing Scizor, there's builds playing Dragapult EX, so there are different variations of Gholdengo going around, and we'll have to see how Gholdengo does this weekend, because I do think this deck is fairly well positioned, and it might be a popular deck too, to be honest with you. There's a good chance it's popular. All right, then we got Bridge, another deck that I expect to be fairly popular just because of the different variations of the deck going around. The one that I think may be the most common is the Poison build of Archaladon. This one has, in my opinion, been the most successful in the online tournaments, and I think it does have the best win rate against some of the bigger decks like Gholdengo and Raging Bolt and stuff. Just being able to use Poison to knock stuff out is actually really sneaky because you're able to one-shot stuff and deny Fez and whatnot. So Poison Bridge actually doesn't seem like a terrible deck, and I think it might be the more common way Archaladon sees play. So you have to watch out for the Petrons, obviously. But then we have, like, the Archaladon, like, kind of straightforward approach to the deck where it's, like, using something like a Dunsparce engine to get going. It plays, like, a heavier line of Black Belt and Max Belt, probably a spec. This build of Archaladon is pretty solid, too. Just a more straightforward, streamlined version of the deck. A little bit more consistent and powerful than the Poison build in some regards, but yeah, I think Archaladon, like, straightforward build isn't going to be surprising. If your opponent is playing Archaladon, do not be surprised if they have, like, Black Belt in the deck or, like, Max Belt. Then I want to talk about this new Archaladon Zoroark deck that's been going around. This deck, I think, got popularized by Gabriel Fernandez, so there's something to it. I think this is a build that I don't think will be very popular compared to the other Bridge builds, mainly because I don't think enough people really have put in enough time with the deck, but this deck, I think, actually seems decent and has a good chance of doing well this tournament. I think there might be a few Archaladon Zoroarks going far in Atlanta. It's a pretty strong archetype, so I wanted to highlight that real quick. All right, Terrapagos, another deck that I expect to be fairly represented. This might not be very popular compared to, like, Terrabox. I think Terrabox is overall, like, the more appealing deck to play. I don't think, like, the more casual players are going to, gravitate towards this deck. Terrapagos is a bit harder to pilot. It does have a good matchup into Terrabox. So, like, the main point about this deck is, like, you play it, you take a really good Terrabox matchup. Your Dragapult matchup is a little close. Your Gholdengo matchup is kind of close, depending on how they, counter Cornerstone, but yet it's decent. It beats Archaladon, I think. It's pretty good. It's just an overall strong, well-rounded deck. It has some really cool, like, plays with the Cornerstone and the Monkey Dories. Can be very tough to deal with these, like, beefy Terrapagos. And like I said, you're taking a good Terrabox matchup. This deck could be popular, and, I expect to do fairly well this weekend, too. It could potentially be in the top 8. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Then we got Feraligatr. I wanted to highlight this. I think it's still one of the better one-price decks you can play right now, maybe even the best one-price deck to bring to this tournament. It is a harder deck to play, but I think Feraligatr could do well this weekend. I think there is a chance somebody could bring it and have a decent run with it. Now that the format is kind of shifting a little bit, good chance Gator could do well. I will say this, like, I don't know if the Dragapult matchup is great, but if it is, if somebody has figured out the lines in that matchup, Feraligatr definitely could have a good tournament. So I don't think many people are really thinking of this deck or, like, respecting it, if that makes any sense, which is a good thing for one of these type of... Well, it's not really a control deck, but... Pardon me, it has control elements in it. Damn. Okay. Then we got Zacian here, which... another deck that I don't think is as good as people make it out to be. I don't think this deck is, like, going to win the tournament or maybe even make top 8, but there will be some Zacian archetypes in day 2. The more common way I think it might be played is with this Monkey Dory build, but the Iron Valiant build also has been getting some attention, and maybe the Iron Valiant build of the Zacian deck is just the better way to play the deck, to be honest with you. So there's a good chance we'll see, like, Zacian have, like, somewhat of a decent run. I don't think it's, like, going to win the tournament. I don't think it's going to get top 8, but Zacian, it exists. People have probably put some time in with it, and I think that like the more like spready approach is probably the way to go over like playing it with like Archaladon or whatever. So wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a Hop Zacian deck have like a top 32 run in the tournament. Now we got to talk about Zard. Zard's in a weird spot right now. I actually think the deck is not in a bad spot. The problem is you just have a bad matchup in a Dragapult, and that's the only thing holding this deck back. I think Terrapagos Noctowl Charizard is actually a very powerful archetype, and would probably be one of the best decks right now if it didn't take such a bad matchup in a Dragapult. Dragapult is going to be very popular this weekend, might even be the most played deck in the room. I don't know if I want to play a deck like Charizard where you're just taking such a bad matchup in a Dragapult. Now, it's not unwinnable. Max Belt, I think, does make the matchup slightly closer, but the problem is that Dragapult has Budu, so if you build your Charizard deck like this, you're just going to struggle into Budu. They got Unfair Stamp, which is annoying. There's just a lot of things working against Charizard, against that Dragapult matchup, in my opinion. Like, I think the Unfair Stamp really makes it awkward, too. Because if you deal with the Budu to get your Charizards out, they just stamp you to 2. I don't know. Charizard definitely doesn't feel like a good deck to bring to a tournament where there's a good chance Dragapult dominates. But it's still very strong. It's one of those decks that nobody really, like, respects or thinks of right now. And, you know, especially with the Max Bell being such a good ace spec in the deck and all these other matchups like Archaladon, Gholdengo, Raging Bolt, stuff like that, I can definitely see Charizard having a good run. You just have to either dodge the Dragapult or get lucky versus Dragapult. Those are two things I don't know if I want to be doing going into Atlanta, but I do think that somebody could do that. And then Charizard Pidgeot, same kind of case where it's like, I think this build is a little bit better into Dragapult. Like if you build your Charizard Pidgeot deck a bit, you know, to tech for Dragapult, I think it has a better time in a Dragapult than the Terrapagos build. But same thing applies. You're still taking that weak Dragapult matchup. You can add Max Belt. Like, I think if you're just going to play Zard this weekend, just play Maximum Belt. Like, you're going to have a better time in a Dragapult if you do that, and it's going to be the most played deck in the room. And again, I think Charizard is, like, actually not in a bad spot for this tournament. Overall, it's just you're losing to one of the biggest decks in the room, but you're beating almost everything else. Like, I also think your Terra Box matchup is, like, slightly close, depending on how you build your Charizard deck. It's one of the, I feel like it's a bit of a sleeper deck for this tournament, but I don't think it's going to do as well. Though I think Zard is slightly underrated. Another deck that I do want to see do well, I don't know if it will, is Enzor. This is the first tournament where it's legal, and I think a lot of people have been really cooking the deck, and we might see some Enzor in day 2. I don't know how far this deck can actually go in the tournament. Its power level just isn't as high as other decks in the format. It doesn't really have a bad matchup spread, though, I want to say. Like, if you can set up effectively against, like, Terra Box, I think it's okay. Your Dragapult matchup, I don't think is bad either. I think, actually, out of all the new decks, this probably has the best Dragapult matchup. In my opinion, especially because like they can't one-shot you, and Rescue Ram is really good. The problem with Enzor, though, is nobody really knows a good 60 for the deck yet, and you know it's also one of those things where it's like kind of power level is not very high, right? That's kind of the main issue. But Enzor is definitely a good deck that you know we'll see a couple in day 2, which I'm excited to see what people cook. All right, Walls. This deck did good in Japan, still is doing good in Japan, but yet nobody's really thinking about it right now. It's kind of crazy. I think one of the reasons why it's flopping so hard is people are really just building their decks to be Walls, or at least people have just found out that Walls actually isn't as good as people made it out to be, or maybe it is actually secretly good, but nobody's put the time in with the deck yet. To be fair, Walls is like a pile. It doesn't have much like of an engine. It's just kind of like put Pokemon in play that can't be attacked, heal, build them up really quickly, and just hope that your opponent can't get over a few of them. That's essentially the deck in a nutshell. But I think Walls is decently well-positioned for this tournament. I just don't know how good it actually is, because you can wind up hitting a bad matchup. Like, for example, you take, like, an auto loss in a Gardevoir, basically. Dragapult is probably one of your better matchups, but a good Dragapult player might have lines against you, especially if they play the Blood Moon or Saluna, which is not a good time for this deck. And then also something like the Terra Box and Raging Bull matchups. They're good matchups, but some of them might be playing Cornerstone, which can beat this deck. So I don't know. We'll have to see where this deck goes. I don't think it's going to be popular. Thankfully, I mean, a deck like this being popular wouldn't be very fun, but I don't know. There's like someone will have a run with it for sure. You can hit a bunch of players who just don't tech for it, go far in the tournament. Even if you do have techs for this deck, like it can still beat you if it overpowers you, or you just don't have enough resources to get over all the walls. One wall maybe, but not 2. All right. Another deck that I kind of want to see perform well is Flareon Box. This is a deck people have hyped up a little bit, but we haven't really seen this deck perform well yet. One, though, it is a deck I can see do well. It might be better than Terra Box in some regards, where it does have more, you know, beef behind it with the Flareon, the Sylveon being a bit more tankier. The deck is really cool, and I do like the deck. I want the deck to do well. Hopefully somebody makes like top 32 with Flareon Box. That's something I did want to highlight. Frostlass. Another deck that you might be like, why is this on here? Well, Frostlass has been doing okay recently and has been. I have seen a little bit of talk about Frostlass. It doesn't actually have a bad matchup spread. I think maybe the worst matchup by far is probably just maybe Dragapult. I don't even know if Dragapult's like bad. I don't know. It's probably a bad matchup. Phantom Dive's pretty good, but you're playing 3 Monkey Dories. It can't be that bad. I don't know. We'll see. Frostlass isn't a bad deck, though, and I do want to see this deck do well in Atlanta. It's one of those decks where, like, it's finally time for a deck like Frostlass to perform well. Yo, we got top 16 at the recent Champions League. Frostlass's time to shine is now. All right. And then I got to talk about Slowking real quick. I know a lot of people really hype this deck up, and honestly, if you're somebody who wants to play Slowking to this tournament, it's probably one of the best times to play it anyways, just because of the fact that we're not going to see a whole lot of Manaphy, right? So, like, until Shaman comes out, Slowking isn't a bad deck to play, in my opinion, until Shaman comes out, so you might as well play it. I don't know. Slowking is a weird deck. I think it's probably, like, worse than Feraligatr in terms of one-prizers, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody made day 2 with it. It's definitely a deck that's going to make a couple day 2s this weekend, and who knows, maybe somebody can have a decent run with it. Top 8 probably won't happen. I don't think Slowking is a deck that can win a tournament, but it's definitely not a bad deck, and I do want to see it in day 2. It's like one of the best times to play it is right now because we don't have a bench barrier in the format. All right, I do have a couple of runner-ups here that I wanted to mention for, like, secret picks for this tournament that I want to see do well. The first one is Mamoswine. I think Mamoswine, another deck I actually think could do well if somebody built a good Mamoswine list. The more common way to play it is with the Chicken and the Pidgeot, and this deck is fine. You have an auto loss against Cornerstone, so if I'm playing Mamoswine, I'm considering playing some kind of counter to Cornerstone in the deck. But I think Mamoswine actually doesn't seem terrible, and I do want to see somebody make day 2 with it. So I wanted to highlight that. And the final deck in my underrated deck category here is the Dragapult Iron Thorns deck. I don't think this deck is better than the actual Dragapult deck itself, but I think that it's a bit more sneakily well-positioned for this tournament. A lot of decks really haven't, like, put in time to, like, counter these type of annoying wall-style-y decks. It's not really a wall deck, but you can build a Dragapult Iron Thorns deck to have hard answers to popular archetypes. So, for example, you want to play Toadscruel, you have a better matchup versus Gholdengo, which is going to be popular this weekend, I think. Or, you know, it will be one of the more common decks. You know, Iron Thorns is pretty good right now against some of the archetypes. You can play the Farigiraf in the deck, which I've seen some builds play. Farigiraf isn't terrible in Pult Thorns either, because the Giraffe gives you a better time into Raging Bolt and whatnot. So, weirdly enough, this deck is actually well-positioned for this tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody actually got a good run with this deck. Like, a top 32 is definitely on the table for Pult Thorns. It's an underrated archetype. I don't know how good your actual, like, Dragapult matchup is. That's, like, the one thing that holds it back is you don't seem to have a great matchup versus Dragapult itself. You could play, like, a Monkey Dory in the deck, which would make it a bit better. That is definitely your worst matchup, probably is Dragapult, but I think Pult Thorns is sneakily not a bad deck for this tournament. All right, meta breakdown time. Let's get it. So, we'll start off here with the Dragapult deck. So, Dragapult is probably going to be the most common deck in the room. The mainly reason why I think Dragapult will be the most popular deck in the room is because, one, it's getting a lot of hype right now. There's a good chance it'll be played by most good players. Like, a lot of the top players going to this tournament might be on Dragapult. I mean, for this tournament, I honestly can see it being like 15%. Like, that's pretty high for it, but keep in mind, this is the first major tournament in a new format. Some people just haven't put in time with new archetypes and just can't be bothered. They're just like, let me just play something that I know really well. Like, Dragapult, I played it in the Prismatic meta. Might as well just play it in this format. It's, like, essentially the same deck. And, the deck's one of the best decks in the tournament, if not the best deck. Let me play it. So, Dragapult, pretty good chance is going to be 15% of the room or higher. That's, like, pretty high, but I 100% think Dragapult is going to be that popular. Then we got Terrabox. I think it'll be around, like, 11 to 12%, maybe. That might be a little too high, even for the deck. Like, that's pretty damn high for Terrabox, but I don't know. Like, I think the deck's hype has started to dwindle a little bit since rotation. People have kind of figured out good decks against it, and Dragapult is also good against it. Still, though, it's a deck that wouldn't be surprised to see it in that, like, actually, you know what? I'll go to 10%. 11 seems okay for the deck, like, in that, like, 10, 11% range, but 10% probably is a little bit more safer. I don't think Terrabox is going to be that popular. Dragapult will be the most popular deck in my opinion, but Terrabox probably around, like, 10%. Raging Bolt will probably be around, like, 8 to 9%. We'll give it 9% on the high side, because it is Raging Bolt. Keep in mind, people love this deck. Raging Bolt could be around 9% of the room. Honestly, that might be a little bit too low. I don't know, like, Raging Bolt, will it be more popular than Terrabox? I don't know about that one. 9% is probably where it'll be at. Archaladon, like 8%. Now, okay, keep in mind, though, Archaladon has all these different variations of the build, so, like, that boosts its play rate up. Like, I think if there's just one way to play Archaladon right now, it would be, like, probably 6%. 8% combined with all the versions of it probably is a little bit more accurate. Gholdengo, probably 6 to 7%. We'll go 7% for this one. I don't know. Gholdengo, 6%, 7%. I don't. Seven's a little high, honestly. Every time Gholdengo has like seen play, it's been in that like 6 to 7 range. So I'll go down to 6%. 6 probably a bit more accurate for Gholdengo, to be honest with you. Next up, we have Gardevoir. Legit 5%, 5 to 6%. I think it'll be in that like 5%, 5-6% range of popularity. I don't think the deck will be played by all the Guardy players who played it in the previous format. So I think the deck is not. It's not the same anymore. It's not the same. You don't have Curlia, but I do think that the deck is strong enough where people will actually bring it to the tournament. 5% feels okay for the deck right now, in my opinion. Next up, we have Terrapagos. I would probably put that in like the 4% range. I don't think the deck is going to be very popular, though I think it is good, and there will probably be like good players on it. It's not a deck that the casual player will pick up. They'll rather gravitate towards like Dragapult or Bolt or Archaladon, right? So I don't see them doing that with Terrapagos. Probably 4%. Next up, Zacian, 3% probably. It's a new deck. People are excited to try it out. And Enzor, I'd probably, honestly, this probably should be an other. Its play rate will be very low. I'll give it 2% to be generous. Feraligatr, yeah, probably a 2% or 2. Let's see here. Charizard variants. Charizard itself will probably be 4%. I don't know, like, I think the deck is underrated. Don't get me wrong. I think Charizard, like, if you want to play Charizard for this tournament, go ahead. Like, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to say it's the worst deck in the tournament. Again, most popular deck in the room is going to be Depult by a long shot. You're hitting a matchup that's pretty bad. But keep in mind, though, this is the largest regionals of all time. There's a good chance you just hit a bunch of random stuff in the tournament. 9 rounds is a lot. A lot of players, new format, people trying out jank stuff. Charizard is good against jank, in my opinion. So, I don't know, man. Like, 4% is probably where it'll be. I don't see the deck being any higher than that. I think Charizard is, like, a legit good deck right now. Like, you beat almost everything that literally isn't Dragapult. That seems pretty good, but you're taking a bad matchup for the best deck in the format. It's like Charizard in the Drago format. Like, the Regidrago format was, like, the same thing. Charizard was, like, the second best deck behind Regidrago. You beat everything, but then you just really struggled against Drago. I don't know about that one. Walls, probably, like, 2%. Yeah, probably like 2%. I don't see it being any higher than that. Like, I would probably go like other. I mean, I guess looking at the metagraph here, we still have a lot of space left. There's a good chance others like 8%. You gotta remember, there's a lot of like random stuff. Honestly, like 9% other, even 10. Honestly, that may be a little bit too low. Again, new format. People are playing new archetypes. These other style decks could be a lot more common than you think. So maybe we should boost up the percentages a little bit. Maybe like Dragapult 17%, Terrabox like 11, Raging Bolt probably 10%. It's a bit more accurate. There's probably more decks we could add to make the meta predictions a bit higher to equal 100%, obviously. But like on average, I think this is like mostly how popular each deck will be. I don't know. Archaladon maybe could be a bit higher too, to be honest. Like maybe like. Honestly, 10%? That might be too high, dude. No way Archaladon is 10%. Maybe. There's a lot of ways to build it and play it right now. That kind of, you got to factor those in. That's probably the accurate meta prediction. Again, the most popular deck will be most likely Dragapult. Probably has the best chance of winning the tournament. Terrabox, also going to be very popular, but I don't think it'll be as represented. These like big beat stick decks, Bolt, Archaladon will be popular. Gholdengo will be decently popular. Gardevoir might be more popular than you might think. A lot of good players will be on Terrapagos, but I don't think it's going to be that popular overall. But yeah, there you go. Those are my meta predictions for the Atlanta Regional Championships. I'm pretty excited for it this weekend. I'm excited to see what does well in the tournament and what wins the tournament. It's going to be a crazy one, folks, so strap in. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. Let me know your predictions down below for the tournament. And I'll catch you on another video over here very soon on the second channel. Bye-bye.